everyone, thanks for coming. This is going to be, I hope, the first in a series of these that we are going to occasionally do. Just small little informative press conferences between our office and the Fort Wayne Police Department. And I would like to introduce to all of you, I think he introduced himself, this is Captain Tom Bandor. And Captain Bandor is the Fort Wayne Police Department liaison to the Allen County Prosecutor's Office. If you don't know, the Prosecutor's Office and other agencies meet on a weekly basis, and we discuss issues in the community. Are there any problems we're having with each other? Do we see any particular trends? Are there folks out there that somebody's looking for? Are there public safety issues, etc.? So it has come to both of our attention that over the past few months, there have been a lot of reports of robberies connected to people either buying or selling items via Craigslist. So I gave you, or actually the police department was kind enough to provide you with both this statement and some attached police reports with the private information taken out, so you can get an idea that there's a public safety issue out there surrounding this. And I'm going to let Captain Bandor just add whatever he'd like to add to this, or any questions that you might have of him, and then I can fill you in a little more too if you have any more questions. Captain Bandor, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, there are other websites too that people will use to do this type of operation. We're not picking on Craigslist, but that is the pattern that we've seen here locally. And I'm sure there's probably hundreds or even thousands of successful transactions that go well, but there are predators out here that are looking to rob people, and oftentimes they are offering for sale like an Xbox or a cell phone, and they'll post that listing, and they will make an agreement with a prospective buyer. That buyer will then come in to make that transaction, and they will then present a firearm or another weapon, and then rob the person of the cash that they know that they are bringing, because there are they know that what the purchase price was and the cash is going to be there. They also then rob any extra money or any valuables. Oftentimes will take their own, the victim's cell phone as well. So we have several suggestions on maybe how to avoid potential problems like this. To prevent being robbed, we're suggesting that you meet in a public place, a well-lit place, preferably during daylight hours. Definitely one option would actually even be, the Fort Wayne Police Department lobby would be a good opportunity for somebody to meet for a cell phone or a small item like that. And if the prospective seller is afraid to meet at the police station, that might be a red flag for you. Also, if you make an agreement, you're going to meet at a place that's comfortable for both of you, and then that plan changes and they want to take you to their apartment complex or to their residence or another location, I would also say that that's a red flag. You should probably consider discontinuing the transaction at that point, or you can suggest, I'll remain here. If you want to get the item and bring it to me, I will wait here for you. It's also important probably to make sure that you have a friend or somebody else that you trust with you present to be a witness, and also help prevent anything that maybe you wouldn't see as a danger. So those are some of the issues that we would like to see you do to protect yourself from becoming a victim of robbery.
Does anybody have any questions? And I'll go over some of this for you later. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, it looks like the first report here, the people that were robbed were selling items.
Yeah.
So is it going both ways?
It's going both ways. Okay. Yeah, it's going both ways. The police department was kind enough to include these just so that you can kind of see the variables. However, it's become pretty clear that there's some folks that have figured out this is a really good and easy way to make money, because you see the same pattern tending to repeat itself. And I think what we're worried about is that in a couple of these, people have actually taken guns to the transaction to protect themselves, and then they get robbed of their gun. So we're not only getting people robbed of cash and property, but now we've got a gun out there with somebody that clearly shouldn't have a gun. So the other concern is, you know, if you do bring a gun to one of these and things go bad, you know, is somebody going to get shot? So these things are clearly, you know, escalating to a place that we really do see public safety issues.
So with the links in the robberies, are you guys, is it too early to tell if it might be the same 4 or 5 people doing this?
There are definitely some that actually meet a very clear method of operation, that appear to be the same suspects as far as the description goes, same type of firearm being described as being used, the same method of meeting at an apartment complex where they claim they live, and even taking them sometimes into a vacant apartment or apartment building where they can be out of public view and commit this crime. So we would definitely say there are some that are similar, but there are other groups that probably are doing the same type of activity.
Are there any obstacles that make these cases harder to prosecute, or what's
You know,
the-
so far we haven't gotten a suspect in any of these yet, so I think the police department is still, you know, working on all of their investigations. So far we haven't gotten a suspect. I would think that if we can get a suspect to these and that person can be identified by the people that have been robbed, I don't see a real impediment. The only impediment at this point is to try to figure out who these folks are. And if they're not the same person, then we've got multiple people out there doing the same type of thing.
And if someone, sorry.
I was just going to say, some of the hindrance in trying to even make an arrest is that they are taking the victims to a secreted location out of public view, so the crime can happen without witnesses. Then the victim's cell phone is stolen from them, so they cannot alert the police, so we have a slower response time. They have to drive to another location to get to a phone, and then by the time we get there, it's a half an hour later before we can even start our investigation. So we don't have much to work with when that occurs. Where in a public place, we may have video footage or other witnesses or immediate phone contact, and we might have a cruiser close by to potentially make an apprehension. So some of those things are hindering the ability for the police department to actually make an arrest. But prosecution should not be a problem after that occurs.
If someone would find themselves in this position where they've encountered this type of situation, what do they need to remember? What do they need to bring to the police?
They need to be the best witness that they can, get a very good physical description of the victim, or excuse me, of the perpetrator, and clothing description is always good. If there's a vehicle that's involved that the perpetrator has gotten into, that's always great information, especially if we can get any information from the license plate, even a partial, what state, those type of things. Anything that's outstanding, unusual about that car, maybe damage to part of the vehicle, or a unique bumper sticker or something of that nature, something that will stand out to the eye of a police officer looking for that perpetrator.
How important are serial numbers on?
That's crucial. If you have an item that you are selling and that item is stolen from you, if you have the serial number, that's the only absolutely positively way that we can identify that item, because there's hundreds or thousands of the same ones made, and even if it's the same make and model, we have to have that serial number for the best opportunity for successful conviction.
I also noticed in the release that you had the police station as possibly a place to go to do a transaction like this.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea for especially small items like cell phones and the Xbox and things like that. They're easily carried into that type of public arena. And if, as I said earlier, if somebody is afraid to meet you there in the police department, that should send up a red flag immediately.
So now I know you briefly touched on this at the beginning of the conference, but are there things that are more unsafe or items that we're seeing this happen more particularly to or sections of Craigslist, you know, because there's the children's section and the different electronics section. Is there things that I guess are more unsafe to sell and buy right now?
As far as unsafe, I think there are probably lots of successful transactions, many, many more than what we are talking about. It's a fairly small percentage of items that are involved in these type of robberies, but the primary seem to be the Xbox consoles, those games, and cell phones, especially smartphones, tend to be a hot item that bring a large dollar amount. So that's what we're seeing right now in this city.
Are you seeing them in any particular area of town, or are they kind of spread out? I'm noticing that almost all of these involve apartment complexes. So don't be fooled by thinking an apartment complex counts as a public place.
I would say that's not a safe public place, because many of the complexes, especially depending on what time of day or night that you go, could be sparsely populated. Some of them might even have entire buildings that are vacant, so there's no one present even if you step inside those. Sometimes those doors are unsecure and they can gain access easy. So I would not, a place of residence or an apartment complex is not a good place to meet. It wouldn't be a good public place. They chose that location for a reason, and it probably would be better for you as the potential buyer, or if you're going to be selling something and you meet somebody, for you to pick that safe place. And it could be a place that's a gas station, some place that has video is a good place to do that, because then that also will support your statement, and the police can obtain that photographic documentation and evidence so that they can have a better case to prosecute as well, and to make an apprehension.
Even 10 years ago, and I don't know if it's just because it's the digital age or whatever, but we would have people take out classified ads for things, and and even eBay and stuff, but it just is so strange that it seems to be Craigslist, or I don't know. Do you have any theories on?
I think part of it is because an ad in the newspaper is traceable back to the person that puts the ad, and also it costs money. Whereas Craigslist is free and you can set up a fake account, and it's difficult to go back and trace. So I think that's what makes the computer, sites so easy to use for an illegal purpose. And again, this is all about giving people tools to be safe with. We're not saying don't use the computer, don't use Craigslist. We're just saying if you're going to do it, use these safety tips. And the places that the police department have suggested using, if you go across the street, you use the lobby of the Rousseau Center. Parking is right there. If you go use the lobby of Citizen Square, parking is free. It's right in front of the building. So it's a good, easy, open place to use to exchange money for goods. And if it makes somebody uncomfortable to do a transaction in a public building during the daylight, that should tell you something's wrong.
And both of those locations have security officers that work right there in those public areas. So that's just additional eyes and help if something goes awry. So I think those are excellent suggestions.
Have you had contact with Craigslist officials?
As part of the investigation, that is a way for us to attempt to trace back to the perpetrators of these crimes. So we have done that. Information always doesn't flow very quickly, so it takes some time for us to develop good suspects and so forth. But that is part of our investigation, yes.
Well, thank you very much. If nobody has any further questions, I really appreciate you coming. And anytime, like I said, I think this is going to begin to be a series. Anytime we see patterns like this, we would like to make the public aware of those. because it helps to keep people safe. And, you know, people don't always see the side of things that law enforcement sees. So this is our opportunity to kind of share things with you and say, hey, you know, this is out here, maybe this is a better way for you to do things. So I appreciate you making this kind of information available to the public.
Have there been any reported that in relation to this? I know that there was another Craigslist guy that got caught last year. I think maybe he smacked somebody with a gun, but I don't know with this group.
This particular one, I don't recall any off the top of my head, although I see all the robberies, and I know that we've had some fairly serious bodily injury from some of them, but I don't know if any of them are the ones that fit this criteria with the Craigslist.
Thank you.
Thank you much. I appreciate it.